Welcome to Ingles con Juan, where we explore the truth about learning English, the real truth, not the sanitized version from textbooks. This channel exists because too many students spend years achieving perfect scores in class, only to feel completely lost when they step into the real world. Every video here shares authentic stories about the gap between classroom English and street English, practical strategies to bridge that gap, and honest motivation to keep going when reality hits harder than expected. Today's story is about that shocking moment when 10 years of straight A's suddenly feel worthless at an airport customs counter. Let's begin. The pilot announces descent into Heathrow Airport. Lucía closes her notebook with confidence. She's been preparing for this moment since she was 14 years old. A 2-week intensive English course in London, staying with a host family, attending lectures at a language institute, exploring the city where Shakespeare lived and wrote. This isn't just a trip. It's validation. Proof that her decade of dedication has prepared her for real English in the real England. The plane touches down. Lucía gathers her carry-on bag, straightens her jacket, and joins the queue for passport control. She rehearses simple phrases in her mind. I'm here for an English course. 2 weeks. Yes, I have accommodation arranged. Easy. She's practiced these exact scenarios hundreds of times in class. Then she steps up to the immigration counter, and everything changes. If you've ever felt confident in your English skills until you encountered real native speakers in real situations, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Ingles con Juan. Because Lucía's about to learn what thousands of English students discover the hard way. Classroom English and real English are sometimes completely different languages. Lucía freezes. She heard sounds. She recognized it as English, but she didn't understand a single word. Not one. The officer dropped his H's, what, became wa. His T's disappeared into glottal stops, completely different from the crisp pronunciation in her audio textbooks. And a white love isn't even in her vocabulary lists. She panics internally but maintains composure externally. She responds with what she practiced. I am here for English course, 2 weeks. I have accommodation with host family in Camden. The officer speaks again, faster this time. Yeah, all right. So you're here for studies, innit? Got the address where you're staying? And have you been to Britain before, or is this your first time, mate? Lucía catches maybe 40% of the words. Here, studies, address, Britain, first time. But the rest blurs into incomprehensible sounds. The word in it makes no sense. Why is he calling her mate? She's a woman. Her heart races. 10 years of English, and she can't understand a basic immigration interview. She fumbles with her documents, hands shaking slightly, and manages to say, Sorry, can you repeat more slowly, please? The officer softens immediately. He's dealt with countless nervous travelers. He slows down considerably and enunciates more clearly. No problem. Do you have the address where you will be staying in London? This version Lucía understands perfectly. It matches textbook English structure. She shows him the printed confirmation from her host family. He glances at it, stamps her passport, and says, thankfully slower, Welcome to London. Enjoy your stay. Lucía thanks him and walks toward baggage claim, her confidence completely shattered. She just completed one conversation, under ideal circumstances with printed documents to help, and she barely survived it. What will happen when she needs to order food at a restaurant, ask for directions, have actual conversations with her host family? The baggage carousel rumbles to life. Around her, British travelers chat naturally with each other. She tries to listen, to pick up words and phrases, but their English sounds nothing like her classroom recordings. They speak faster, drop sounds, use slang she's never encountered, interrupt each other, laugh at jokes she doesn't understand. The overwhelming realization crashes over her. Her perfect grades measured one type of English, but real England speaks another entirely. Margaret speaks relatively clearly, but she uses expressions that baffle Lucía completely. Fancy a cuppa? What does fancy mean as a verb? Why is tea called cuppa? I'm knackered from the shops. Knackered isn't in her textbook. The weather's been absolutely rubbish lately, hasn't it? Rubbish means garbage, but how does that relate to weather? Tom is worse. He speaks quickly, mumbles occasionally, and uses rhyming slang that makes no logical sense. I'm going up the apples and pears, but he's climbing the stairs. Let me get on the dog and bone, but he's picking up the telephone. When Lucía asks him to repeat something, he often rephrases using different slang, which doesn't help at all. The Language Institute provides some relief. Her teachers there speak slowly and clearly, professional English designed for international students. But they also introduce a harsh truth. On the first day, her instructor asks the class, "How many of you feel like your English has suddenly disappeared since arriving in the UK?" Every hand raises. 23 students from 15 countries, all experiencing the same shock. Lucía feels simultaneously relieved, she's not alone, and discouraged. If everyone struggles with this, maybe real English is simply too difficult for non-natives to master. But the instructor, a woman named Sarah, shares something important. Your English hasn't disappeared. You've been learning standard English, grammar rules, formal vocabulary, clear pronunciation. That's essential foundation. But most native speakers don't actually speak standard English in casual conversation. We use contractions, slang, regional accents, and we speak quickly because we're not thinking about grammar, we're just communicating. Your English is good, you just need to train your ear for real-world variation. Sarah teaches them practical strategies. First, it's perfectly acceptable to ask people to slow down. Native speakers forget that their normal pace is overwhelming for learners. Second, admit when you don't understand specific words. Most people will happily explain. Third, exposure is key. Watch British TV shows, listen to podcasts, eavesdrop on conversations in cafes, immerse your brain in authentic English even when it feels uncomfortable. Lucía decides to treat this like a challenge rather than a failure. She spent 10 years learning the rules. Now she'll spend 2 weeks learning the reality. That evening, instead of hiding in her room feeling inadequate, she joins Margaret and Tom watching a British comedy series. She understands maybe half of the dialogue, but she keeps watching. She notices patterns, how they swallow word endings, how going to becomes gonna, how want to becomes wanna, how could've becomes could've. The next morning, she practices something terrifying, speaking imperfectly. At a coffee shop, instead of rehearsing her order silently first, she just speaks naturally and asks questions when she doesn't understand. The barista says something about having it here or taking it away. Lucía admits, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you explain?" The barista smiles and clarifies, "Are you drinking your coffee in the shop or taking it with you to go?" This simple interaction teaches Lucía something crucial. When she admits she doesn't understand, people don't judge her. They help. The problem wasn't her English. The problem was expecting her English to be perfect and complete after 10 years of study. Language learning isn't about reaching a finish line. It's about continuous adaptation. She learns that cheers means thank you, goodbye, or congratulations depending on context. That brilliant is the British equivalent of awesome. That quite has completely different meanings. Quite good means somewhat good, but quite right means absolutely right. That British people apologize constantly, even when nothing is their fault. Sorry functions as excuse me, pardon, or just general politeness. Her listening comprehension improves dramatically through sheer exposure. The first episode of the British series was exhausting. By the 5th episode, she recognizes speech patterns. By the 10th, she's actually laughing at jokes in real time instead of 3 seconds after everyone else laughs. She practices the most important phrase she's learned. "Sorry, could you speak a bit more slowly? I'm still learning English." This one sentence transforms her interactions. At restaurants, museums, shops, on the underground, whenever someone speaks too quickly or uses unfamiliar slang, she asks them to adjust, and they do, every single time. One afternoon, she has a 15-minute conversation with another student at a cafe, a young man from Manchester with a completely different accent than the London accent she's been hearing. 3 weeks earlier, this would have paralyzed her. Now she simply listens carefully, asks for clarification twice, and successfully discusses their experiences as language learners. The conversation isn't perfect. She makes grammatical mistakes. She can't always find the right word immediately, but they communicate. They understand each other. They even laugh together. This is the breakthrough moment. Lucía realizes that her 10 years of study weren't wasted. They gave her the foundation. But fluency doesn't mean understanding every accent, every slang term, every regional variation immediately. Fluency means having enough confidence and flexibility to navigate real communication, despite the unexpected elements. On her final day in London, Lucía returns to the Language Institute for a closing ceremony. Sarah asks students to share one thing they learned. When Lucía's turn arrives, she says in English, "I learned that perfect grades don't mean perfect English. I learned that real English is messy and regional and full of expressions that textbooks never mention. I learned that it's okay to ask people to repeat themselves or explain words. And most importantly, I learned that the gap between classroom English and real English isn't a sign of failure. It's just the next stage of learning." The other students applaud. Sarah adds, "You arrived here thinking your English wasn't good enough. You're leaving knowing that your English is perfectly adequate. You just needed to adjust your expectations and build your confidence. That's real progress." She thinks about all those years studying English, all those hours memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. Were they pointless? No, they were essential. You can't navigate real English without understanding basic structure. But she also realizes what her classes never taught her: flexibility. Textbooks present English as fixed and uniform. Real English is fluid and diverse. There isn't one correct English. There are hundreds of Englishes, shaped by region, class, age, context, and culture. British English differs from American English, differs from Australian English, differs from Indian English. London English differs from Manchester English, differs from Scottish English. Formal English differs from casual English, differs from slang English. Her teachers prepared her for standard English, which is valuable for academic writing, job interviews, and formal situations. But daily life requires street English, the abbreviated, slang-filled, accent-heavy version that native speakers use without thinking. Both are legitimate. Both are necessary. And mastering one doesn't automatically mean mastering the other. Lucía plans to share this experience with her former classmates still studying English back home. She wants them to know that feeling lost when encountering real native speakers is completely normal. It doesn't mean their English is bad. It means they're transitioning from controlled learning environments to chaotic real-world communication. That transition is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. She also wants them to know the most liberating truth. She discovered native speakers want to understand you. When you speak English with an accent, when you make grammatical mistakes, when you need words repeated, most people respond with patience, not judgment. The fear of embarrassment is usually worse than actual embarrassment. The flight attendant interrupts her thoughts with a question spoken in British accented English. "Would you like chicken or vegetarian for your meal?" Lucía understands perfectly this time. She responds naturally, "Chicken, please, thank you." Such a simple interaction. 2 weeks ago, it might have caused anxiety. Now it's just communication, and that's the ultimate goal, not perfect English, but functional English. Not impressing people with flawless grammar, but connecting with people through clear communication. As the plane takes off, Lucía opens her notebook one final time. She doesn't review grammar rules. Instead, she writes a note to her future self. 10 years taught you how English works. 2 weeks taught you how English lives. Keep learning both. If you're studying English right now, please understand that classroom English and real-world English serve different purposes. Study grammar, expand vocabulary, practice pronunciation. But also expose yourself to authentic English, movies, podcasts, conversations with native speakers. Train your ear for different accents. Learn common slang. Accept that confusion is part of the learning process, not a sign of failure. And when you eventually encounter real English in real situations, don't panic if it sounds nothing like your textbook recordings. Ask people to slow down. Admit when you don't understand. Be patient with yourself. Your brain needs time to adjust from controlled learning environments to chaotic, authentic communication. That adjustment is normal and necessary. If this story resonated with you, if it prepared you for the reality of English learning, beyond the classroom, please hit that like button and subscribe to Ingles con Juan for more honest discussions about real English learning. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth before they travel abroad or encounter native speakers for the first time. Your perfect grades aren't meaningless, but they're not the finish line either. They're the starting line for real-world communication. Keep learning, keep adapting, keep asking questions. The gap between school English and real English is bridgeable. It just requires exposure, flexibility, and courage. Thank you for watching. Your English journey is more valuable than any grade could measure. See you in the next video.